In the heart of the Louvre Museum in Paris, hidden from the eyes of tourists and art lovers, lived a very unusual creature. She was a large albino spider that is all white, female with a harmonious and soft body the size of an egg. There were grooves on her back which looked like signs, but maybe they were symbols. Like all spiders, she was always busy weaving her webs. But she was not a common spider, and consequently her cobwebs were not common cobwebs. One of the reasons why she took refuge among the sculptures and paintings of antiquity was that among them she felt at home because they were all familiar. She had known them at the time of their creation, and this made her feel of great value, considering herself older than anything else in the world. But in reality, she was ageless. In some myths and legends, she was known as Grandmother Spider. These stories were told among the tribes of the American Indians. Yet no human eye had ever seen her, so the legends did not describe her appearance. For most people, she was just an interesting fantasy from ancient times. No one could have imagined that her existence was real and that she lived in one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Even less could people have imagined that she had made her home in a museum. Grandmother Sophia was her name, but she wanted to be called Sophie. It seemed more French to her. She loved great art from the beginning, ever since the caveman started painting and sculpting on stone walls. Sophie was in front of her. Nonna Lisa was there, with that subtle and mysterious smile. She liked to call her that rather than Mona Lisa. Now she could walk, climb, and then let herself fall softly and slip into all the marble folds of the most beautiful sculptures the world had ever possessed. At night, when the museum was empty of visitors, guides, and custodians, she would quietly go out into the vast rooms to enjoy the masterpieces that the great artists had created, inspired by the beauty of the forms and the perfection of their symmetry. There were so many of them, from every era and culture, and she loved them all. Grandmother Sophie spent hours and hours studying the colors, perspectives, and symbolisms present in the paintings, enjoying the emotions they conveyed. When the sun rose and the doors opened to the public, she disappeared into the bowels of the museum, where an infinite number of statues were kept. Many of them had traveled to be exhibited in museums around the world, and on each one she had drawn the boundaries with her magic web, with the intention of protecting them. Grandmother Sophie knew the myths that recounted the life-giving power of her web, and only she knew how true they were. The ancients said that the universe continued to be created through her incessant daily work, without ever knowing its end. Like the artists around her, she was also a great artist because she was a creator of new worlds. Her luminous web contained the energy accumulated since before the dawn of civilization, along with all the knowledge that had emerged since then. In fact, that very knowledge had been handed down with the help of her fragile but powerful web. She had lived in forests and fields, mountains and caves, sometimes alone, sometimes in the company of special human beings who, like her, were helping to create a new world of enlightened beings. In one of those caves in southern France, she had met a very special being of light. The solitary woman with whom Grandmother Sophie had lived in that period spent all her time in prayer and contemplation, and seemed to emanate a light of her own. Grandmother Spider joined her in silence from her perch among the rocks to be as close as possible to her. It was there that she understood the importance of her candid appearance and its meaning. Until then, this particularity with which she was born made her feel different from other insects of her species. But the spiritual sharing that took place in the cave had enlightened her to such an extent that it had given meaning to her splendor. Her silent and solitary companion would then, in the centuries to come, be portrayed and sculpted by famous artists. This experience had been a turning point for Grandmother Spider. From it and from the gratitude that resulted, she was inspired to carry out a further mission on this planet, to bring the intentions of that solitary woman everywhere in the world, a mission that might seem useless and impossible, yet necessary. How could she help the inhabitants of the earth to discover the beauty that lies deep within their souls and is reflected through their bodies? She knew only too well how much this beauty had been forgotten, having witnessed so much human history. She knew that most people still lived far from their true potential. To fulfill her mission, Grandmother Spider knew she could not do it alone. Not even her magic web would be enough, even if through it she could communicate over great distances, because her goal was to reach every corner of the earth.